the diversity of use cases for campaigns, that are kind of data and AI enabled is much deeper than most companies realize. So I think I mentioned like customizing an email. That's kind of scratches the surface.
Welcome to the Marketing Rapport, a podcast created for and by marketing professionals who seek to better understand their consumers and design unique, personalized experiences that stand out in today's market. In each episode, hosts from Verisk Marketing Solutions connect you to industry thought leaders, practitioners, and experts focused on improving B2C experiences through powerful data-driven insights. It's about how we connect with our consumers and where we can partner together to do it better. This is the Marketing Rapport.
Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of the Marketing Rapport. For those of you coming back, thank you for listening again. We've got a great guest coming up. But for those that are new to the Marketing Rapport, just to give you a foundation of what the Marketing Rapport is all about, we created this as a marketing function at Verisk for the marketers of any other organization. So it's created by marketers for marketers. And what we do is we bring on thought leaders, subject matter experts, not only in marketing, but in leadership and other industries, because we want to get a wide range of, hey, what's happening out in the marketing universe. My name is Tim Finnegan, and I run product marketing for Verisk Analytics. And with me today, I've got Larry Kim, who's the CEO of Customers.ai. He was previously the founder and CTO at WordStream. He's got a lot going on he's a contributor writer. He's been on Inc. Magazine, HubSpot, CNBC, Search Engine Land. And speaking of Search Engine Land, Larry, you were voted Marketer of the Year by Search Engine Land not too long ago. And just to round out who you are, you're also a guest lecturer at the Harvard MBA program. So welcome to the Marketing Rapport, Larry.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be here.
Great. So why don't we start off just telling the audience a little bit about you and what you're currently doing with Customers.ai.
Sure. I'm the founder and CEO of Customers.ai. We are a integrated sales outreach tools and data platform for mid-market B2C companies like e-commerce, helping them find their customers in a very cost-effective and scalable way. And then mostly, I would say that my efforts are related to product, engineering and marketing for the company.
So let's get right into it, Larry. When you talk about the sort of marketing in itself, you have some interesting takes on the future of marketing and sort of where it's evolving to, because we've got these things coming up. We've heard about them in the past, like cookieless future and what's happening with Apple and Chrome. And how do you see that whole world of marketing evolving the next short term and long term?
Sure. In order to understand where we're going, it's important to understand where we've come from. And I would categorize the last, decade or even more than a decade as being a very fruitful and very, amazing time for, unlocking marketing use cases through, search engines and social media and their related ad products that, it was just such a fantastic go-to-market for what an amazing time to be, promoting and selling products, right? Like search marketing, organic and paid search, where you could just enter into people's thoughts and disappear right at the right moment. And social, being able to, literally target any specific demographic interest and behavior, at a scale that was just never really possible before. If you're old enough to remember, like we used to buy a banner ad insertion or based on the, projected, demographics of a magazine or website that, it's pretty ridiculous actually. So that's where we come from. Unfortunately, I don't think that era of like incredible, new marketing use cases, it does seem to be more and more in the rearview mirror, if you ask me, Tim, that, for various reasons, the best that ever got, I would have pegged it at like, a few years ago with, couple core issues. On one hand, there's, competitiveness, any great channel soaks up all the attention and it just becomes more difficult to execute around. In paid media, that manifests itself in terms of ridiculously high, cost per clicks, for Facebook ads, Google ads, like they used to be 5 cents, 50 cent CPMs kind of thing. And now it's like $20, $50 clicks and, $500,000 CPMs. So there's no deals to be had there anymore. If that was the only problem, I might be less pessimistic, but the other big kind of global macro issue that's happening in the marketing sphere is these platforms like Facebook, Google, Apple, they're just getting really enormous and are starting to really more aggressively flex their muscles to protect their, $1 trillion turfs, if that makes sense. So like, take, Facebook, or sorry, Google, for example. They're an advertising company. They also are a browser company that owns, a significant portion of the browser market share on Android and on desktop through their Chrome product. All of their competing ad products out there, like Facebook or TikTok or, Trade Desk, like they're all benefiting from, tracking using third-party cookies. Like anyone can just track, anybody. And that's, for the purposes of performance marketing, basically, to still turn a profit, even though these clicks are like $50. And Google is realizing like, well, why are we giving these other ad platforms like a free ride? Like, why are we letting them, attribute and attract users when, any dollar spent on TikTok ads is a dollar less spent on Google ads. And so, after, a couple of years of kind of declaring that this was going to be the case, they've finally done it. They've declared, third-party cookies, they're going away next year. And I think it's going to go on very quickly. Like they're saying it's over the course of the year, but I wouldn't be surprised if that, if after like a week or two, they start really ramping up that deprecation. And we're seeing the same thing on other platforms like Apple, with their iOS 14, iOS 17, like, they're making it really difficult for advertisers to enjoy the benefits that we've historically benefited from, which is, pretty much unfettered access to, enormous amounts of data. And, for various reasons, I think has a lot to do with the monopoly, the FTC hearings with the Google monopoly hearings going on in Washington right now. Apple's finally decided to stop executing ad scripts in Safari, like the Facebook ad pixel, the Google ad pixel. These are all JavaScripts that you put on your website, and these are seen by this browser, but it's completely ignored along with top 25 other ad pixels. So like, it does seem like there was this. I mean, that's kind of a long answer to your question, but it just seems like the era of like being able to for medium-sized businesses, the large-sized businesses, seamlessly and easily, like just by signing up for a Facebook ad account or Google account, to be able to tap into the vast, amounts of data that they had, and to, turn a profit on a few dollars investment, and to be able to, remarket and to, track the effectiveness of those types of campaigns. It does seem like that is increasingly in the rearview mirror. But that's the only constant in marketing is change. And, I'm sure we'll talk about different ways to, adjust and adapt to those strategies. But this is an enormous change, Tim. Like we've kind of taken for granted that, all of this data is at arm's length, that you could just tap into it easily through your campaign execution. And now I think companies need to start thinking more strategically about, stockpiling their own data, on premise, like in their own clouds or in their own applications, that kind of thing. Any thoughts?
So, Larry, before I do want to jump into first party data and their own data, but I loved your answer because this whole topic of cookies and script it's been like on people's minds for a couple of years, right? Like if you go back and read any of the 2021 trends or 2022 trends or 2022, like one of the things is, hey, cookies are coming and they're finally going to be here. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like marketers in general have been lazy when it comes to having the ability to build audiences and remarket. And now that being taken away, they've got to have some new skills going forward. So I'd like you to touch base, like, so what's the value of this first party data and the importance of it?
So again, this is something we've taken for granted because it's been, the platforms have historically made this very easy to operationalize. Having this data, it allows you to really understand your target market, in terms of the interests, demographics, and behaviors of the people who are buying your stuff. Like, uh, to be able to drill into that information. Like this information used to be provided to you by putting up like a Google Analytics or a Facebook pixel on your website, and then there was like this, Google Analytics used to have like a user explorer. And they took that away because I think they would prefer us in the dark. Facebook also used to have, some very sophisticated abilities to just see all of this information, which was removed like after the Trump election and all this Cambridge Analytica stuff. They're like, oh, wait a minute. We've gotten so big that we actually have more to lose by exposing, this kind of information than the gain from it. So like, we used to be able to have all this insights on who the target market was, as well as what they were doing and who was converting. And this, it's been a death of 1,000 cuts. Like the resolution into that truth is kind of been significantly diminished year after year after year. And I do think some of these changes coming up in the next 3 to 6 months, will really kind of kill off what's left. And if you don't have that, you're marketing like it was pre 15 years ago, like when we didn't have any of these innovations, which were the types of innovations that led to the incredible improvements in targeting, in terms of return on investment, in terms of campaign optimization, like just our ability to turn campaigns into revenues is, kind of rose this, trend of platforms exposing more and more data, and is most certainly is moving in the opposite direction, as they've kind of pendulum is swinging in the opposite direction where they're moving to restrict it. And so first party data, again, the slowest to answer your questions, I'm sorry. Like it's the data that's owned and operated, like, by you, the company, the store, your business. That understanding, which used to be a little bit more commoditized because it was more readily accessible through third party data. I think that a strategic impetus for businesses in 2023 has to do with stockpiling, collecting, and aggregating and enriching your own sources of first party data, for the purposes of resurrecting the types of campaigns that we used to love and enjoy, that were so effective.
Right. And that's what Verus does as far as enriching first party data so you can better market and personalize. Touch on what you think are those skills that marketers need to revisit, where they can't rely on Google AdWords or Google Analytics or scripts or cookies. What are some things that a regular marketer for B2B or B2C can start doing, or needs to look back and say, oh, that's interesting, that was done a couple of years ago, we should really try that again? What do you see
Sure.
going on?
Sure. So I think there's like a balancing of roles. Let's see here. So maybe in the past, we were more focused on, all this campaign execution. And, maybe that needs to be rebalanced. That, thanks to all these new AI innovations, a lot of those campaign executors are going to be put out of business. Like, just because, that stuff is actually ridiculously easy to do with an LLM, in 2023. But then there's this other role. It kind of sits on the intersection of, I don't know, people who run your email campaigns, who run your kind of operationalize your CRMs or your customer, your CDPs, like your customer data platforms. They've had to become a little bit more, significantly more smart about how they execute their job. It's not just about babysitting some CRM. They need to be thinking about how to, dramatically increase the resolution of those data stores in terms of more contacts and more leads, and also a higher resolution of understanding in terms of the kind of the essence of those leads, whether it be like firmographic data if you're a B2B, so where do they work, enriching everything about those people in terms of their work identity, or if you're a B2C company, it would be enriching all that information from a B2C perspective in terms of consumer data, household income or address or cell phone numbers and stuff like this, interest behaviors. And you might ask, to what end? I think there's a couple of use cases. Number one would be to restore lost analytics functionality. So to be able to understand, who's buying your stuff and where you should be focusing your efforts in the first place. Another area would be personalization. So this is where you take all this data that you have, which even 3, 4, 5 years ago, you could have asked me and said, why do I even need all this advanced data, on these leads? And it's becoming more apparent that, one of the most important use cases is generative AI. So the ability to, let me see if I can describe this. It used to be that you would have your big list and you would segment it into 2 buckets, people who have cats and people who have dogs and have run different campaigns. The challenge there was, every time you create another segmentation, that increased the amount of work for those campaign executors. And the other challenge was that you never really knew that much about those people, because you wouldn't have a checkout form that asked 50 questions. They say keep it as little as possible. But this generative AI is just so transformative that it just unlocks ridiculous personalization at scale. You can auto generate, instead of sending out 50,000 of version A and 50,000 copies of version B to your prospects, every single interaction that you send out, emails, could look up, data points on the individual, the recipient, and, be lightly customized to reflect back their identity. So this emerging, AI generative use case it's kind of unlocking use cases and ROI and experiences that just wasn't possible previously. So it's also about restoring performance advertising capabilities. So as you build up this moat of first party data, it's the app platforms do have server APIs that don't rely on cookies or scripts. So what you can do is you can, dial, through a server call directly to those ad platforms and send your first party data directly to them, thereby kind of, not having to deal with all these kind of perils of trying to send data through cookies and scripts, which is just not a reliable, route, anymore. So I just think to your question, like, who does it? It's like this, whoever was dealing with the ads or the emails or the CDP or the CRM, that role has expanded in scope and in skills as the kind of the resolution of data and the transmission reliability of data has diminished from the platforms and browsers, over the last 5 years. And I think, it's, I don't think everyone's figured it out. I think it's, only the top, 3, 4, 5% of companies have figured this out right now. But it's just kind of like the energy field of the winners of the next, like, think about the brands, the big brands of 2023. These were the ones who were all over search engine and Facebook ads and social, like, a decade ago. And what are the innovations that are going to power the next, portfolio of consumer brands or B2C companies? It's going to be the ones that are able to kind of enable these data capture and leveraging that data in their campaigns, those types of motions.
Yeah, and I like how you like your sort of your three things with the restore, personalization, like restoring analytics, and who's going to be able to enable all that. You were mentioning some top businesses, and I just want to react to what you said about AI and in generative AI. I do think that that's where businesses are going to your point, be able to build campaigns and build segmentation. But one of the things I want to make sure that people understand is that there is that first piece that you mentioned, like that first party identity resolution. And a buddy of mine that I work with he would always present like, guess what? Identity resolution is hard. It's not that easy to do. It's like, you just can't just say, hey, let's do it. So that's why you need companies like where I work, or you have your own data scientists to really harness that first party data so you can get to what you were talking about, personalization, right? Because isn't what we're trying to do is that one-to-one marketing or identifying the who, the what, and the when. And it's not just by putting Larry's name on an email. It's really getting into their likes, dislikes, how they want to be reached, what type of channel. And that's what my point when I asked you is that the evolution of marketing is going to go from laziness to relying on certain things to really working hard and trying to understand who our customers are and how we can better market to them. So, Larry, thank you for being here. Couple other points you want to sort of add to? We had talked about maybe what should marketers be paying attention to, maybe not right now, but in the future. Anything you want to add with generative AI or first party or cookies? Any last closing comments?
Yeah, it's just the diversity of use cases for campaigns, that are kind of data and AI enabled is much deeper than most companies realize. So I think I mentioned like customizing an email. That's kind of scratches the surface. It's just, if you have the reason why you need this first party data, like all this enriched data that your company provides, it's the fuel for these generative AI use cases. And so just to enumerate a few examples to get your listeners' minds thinking, it's like, it's not limited to emails. Like, we can generate, voicemails, like, so text, you generate text and then run them through these AI text to speech, conversion tools, and then drop those as voicemails. And it's like, holy moly, this is like a really human sounding, super customized voicemail. Or that there's like use cases around like video where you generate the text that's customized using the data, to, power like a talking head, where it's like you or me talking to the customer, but it's like using the words that are generated through this data and these AI generative applications. It's just, we're just really scratching the surface in terms of, sure, sending an email, that's the least you can do. And, there's so much more. So I think, if I think about successful companies, they have their marketing and then they have their marketing channels. So there's like your core brand and your messaging, and then the way that you then amplify those brand messages through different channels, be it social or email or search or ads. Nothing's changing with the core, your unique selling proposition, or why people should care about you, but like the way that you operationalize the go-to-market. Like this requires like a much more deep understanding of data and all of the diversity of use cases that you could deploy this to the benefit to your customers, your business. And my company, Customers.ai, I mean, we do support some of these use cases, like data enrichment, like we're with a partner, using data to identify visitor information and to follow up with them with customized emails at scale. Like this is amazing. So like we've lost some power on some of the greatest hits of the last decade, but but there's like this new emerging thing for people who are scrappy and able to understand the power here to use that to propel their business forward for the next decade. So, but I guess that's how it always is.
And I love it. We're getting rid of some of the oldies but goodies, but we're going into a whole new arena of getting more hits and trying to capture that truth of marketing and how we can get them, and who we can identify. We can identify the who, we can identify what they like, and we can hopefully identify where they want to be contacted and when they want to be contacted. But Larry, I think we are smarter for listening to you. So at least I know I am. I learned a ton. For anybody that wants to reach out to you or talk about Customers.ai, how do they get a hold of you?
My Twitter is Larry Kim, or hit me up on LinkedIn. And our website is it's HTTPS Customers.ai.
Customers.ai. All right, Larry, thank you so much for being a guest on the Marketing Rapport, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Marketing Rapport. This show is brought to you by Verisk Marketing Solutions, an organization created to help CMOs and their partners improve the reach, timing, relevance, and compliance of every consumer engagement. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the Marketing Rapport wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the show notes for more information.